Hi again, everybody, and welcome. Our movie today is My Favorite Year, a marvelous comedy which marked the debut with introductory credit, if you please, of the terrific actor who is our guest today, the co-star of ABC's wonderful Friday night hit, Perfect Strangers, Mr. Mark Linn-Baker. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you.
Gee, it's great to have you here.
Nice to be here.
And I love your show on Friday, and I wish we were on Channel 5, but maybe eventually the reruns will be. Mark, you've had a whirlwind 5 years since My Favorite Year was made, and such an interesting background of activities concurrent with that and before. Before we get into the movie, can you give us a little brief précis of how you happened to be ready for the part of Benjamin Stone when it came along?
Before My Favorite Year came along, I had been doing a lot of theater in New York, off-Broadway, a lot of regional theater up and down the East Coast. I studied at the drama school at Yale before that, and I went to Yale as an undergraduate, and my family is sort of a showbiz background. My mother and father met doing a show together in Missouri, of all places, and continued to do community theater and semi-professional theater.
So when this marvelous part came along, and we'll discover who discovered him to put him into the piece, you were ready.
Yes.
Good. That's the important thing. You know, a lot of people don't realize that. You can get the big breaks, but if you're not ready and can't deliver at the time, forget it. About the movie itself, would you agree that it is a thinly disguised look at your show of shows? Of course, you're too young to remember, but Sid Caesar and all that bunch?
Yeah, absolutely. It was the kind of live television show that is portrayed in the movie is like your show of shows, and the situation was based on a meeting between young Mel Brooks and Errol Flynn. They actually did meet, but not on your show of shows. This is sort of an extrapolation of that event.
Okay. Having said that, let's get into the film, and then we'll talk with Mark Linn-Baker, introduced, as you will find out shortly, after a brief snatch of Stardust, sung by the wonderful Nat King Cole. Here is My Favorite Year. Live television in My Favorite Year, and our guest is Mark Linn-Baker. Do I remember correctly, this was Richard Benjamin's, one of his early films as a director, right?
This was the first film that he directed.
And what a smash for him. Now, the picture itself didn't break any box office records, but it's acquired a cult status, hasn't it?
Yeah, no, it came out and I think did respectably. It was not a huge box office hit, but since then has played on cable, and a lot of people seem to have seen it, and a lot of people seem to love it.
Now, you're from New York. Was it shot mainly in New York?
No, we did 2 weeks of exterior shooting in New York City, and then 10 weeks on the MGM lot.
Which is where you're working
Which
now.
is now the Lorimar lot, which is where I work. In fact, we shoot Perfect Strangers 2 sound stages away from where we shot My Favorite Year.
And just to digress for a moment from our movie and back to Perfect Strangers, I hear the lovely news that it's been picked up for next year.
Yes, yeah, we've been renewed, so we'll be around for at least another season and hopefully a few more.
Just one brief question about that, and then we'll get back to the movie, because I know that I believe your co-star was selected first, and then can you give us a little bit about that?
Yeah, Perfect Strangers, originally Bronson Pinchot was cast
right.
to do the part of Balki Bartokomous.
Because of
he had come out of Beverly Hills Cop,
right, exactly.
Of course, and then they were looking for the other half of the equation there, and we met and tested for the network, and they thought it was a good idea, so we went ahead.
I've got to tell you, physical comedy, and a great deal of your show is physical comedy, is deceptively easy to look at, but gosh, it's got to take a lot of timing and rehearsal.
Yeah, we work well together, so it cuts a lot of the time in rehearsing, but it takes a lot to make the physical business look effortless.
Right.
And the point is, it's got to look effortless.
Okay, Cameron Mitchell as the thug with the big hat has just been heard from. Let's get back now to the milieu of the live days of television and the, what's the name of the show? The Comedy Cavalcade of King Kaiser in My Favorite Year. Dim sum and the kisses of our guest, Mark Linn-Baker. And in case you hadn't noticed, there's a fellow named Peter O'Toole in the movie as well. It's My Favorite Year, and our guest is Mark Linn-Baker. Someday, I've got to tell you, Mark, some actor is going to, they're going to say, what was it like to work with Mark Linn-Baker? So therefore, having said that, I can ask you, what was it like to work with Peter O'Toole?
It was wonderful. It was, he has got to be among the greatest of our living actors,
right.
So the opportunity to work with someone that good, that early on in my career was just, I couldn't ask for anything more. And the wonderful thing about working with someone that good is that it makes you better.
And I have read, not at your having sent it to me, but in my own research, that Mr. O'Toole had some very nice things to say about you while you were working. And he didn't have to tell somebody how good you were, and obviously he knows his potatoes and his actors. Have you seen Lawrence of Arabia, by the way?
I haven't seen it since its re-release, although I would like to, but I do remember it. I saw it when it was first released, and it's one of those movies that stayed with me, that hung with me.
Of course, I did see it. It's wonderful. All right, speaking of good movies, we've got a lot more of our good movie right after this, and a commercial word or two follows my shutting my mouth. Our movie is my favorite year, and Mark, obviously, some of it you mentioned was shot in Central Park, and that is Central Park, you riding the horse with Peter O'Toole. Can you have any special memories about that?
Yes, the horse riding sequence was one of the first things we shot when we were shooting exteriors in New York, and we did that before we shot the rest of the film. And I do remember that Mr. O'Toole had some sound advice for me, which was, he said there were two things to remember in riding the horse, since we were riding together. And the first was, if he started to fall off, let go of him. And the second one was, if I started to fall off, let go of him.
Very good advice.
Yes.
Now, as I say, that certainly was Central Park, but the television studio itself looks a great deal like Radio City to me.
It's the set that we used was the entire 9th floor of Rockefeller Plaza as it was in 1954, built on a soundstage on the MGM lot. It was all on the MGM lot.
Well, I was there in my Navy sailor suit in 1944, 45, and that certainly looked like a great deal like it to me. All right, we're going to go back to that studio now, because for the first time now we will see Peter O'Toole as the movie star from Hollywood rehearsing this famous sketch, and you are in for a great treat for the rest of our movie. Mark Linn-Baker is our guest, and we're delighted to have had him, and you stick around for great fun, because here it comes. Favorite year, Mark. It's just as good as it was 5 years ago, maybe even better. And I would say, some actors might say, you've got it all. You've got this hit television series, Perfect Strangers on ABC. You've got this wonderful movie, and your career going in New York, too, when you're not working in Hollywood. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks for being with us.
Okay.
Mark Linn-Baker, everybody. And we'll see you next time on the Family Film Festival.